I want to be famous. What I mean is I want to be admired by a lot of people. But I don't think that that's what fame's about either, since you can be very famous and not admired. It's called infamy. Like, Hitler is very famous, but people don't admire him, or at least people you should want to talk to don't admire him. I also think it's a mistake to conflate fame with either success or money. My friend Birdkeeper Toby is a YouTuber, and a while ago he made a vlog about fame in which he said he thinks it's normal for people to want to succeed. And yeah, that's probably true, but you can be very famous and not have any success. He also, in that video, said he thinks it's normal for people to want to stand in front of a crowd and say, look what I have to offer. And again, that might be true, but I don't think that's what fame's about either, because some very famous people didn't do that. Consider somebody like Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara. His face is one of the most, if not the most, reproduced image in human history. This photo is so famous it even has its own name, the Gorillaro Heroico. But Che stood in front of crowds and said, look what we have to offer. He shunned the limelight so much that after the Cuban Revolution was over, he could have stayed in Cuba and probably enjoyed a pretty decent life, but he didn't. He disappeared. He gave it all up and actually went to start revolutions in other countries. So he's incredibly famous, but he didn't have a lot of money. He wasn't universally admired. He didn't really seek the limelight. And outside of Cuba, he didn't really have that much success either. One thing that story nicely illustrates is that fame never happens in a vacuum. It always happens in some socio-political context. Fame under capitalism might be very different from, say, fame under socialism. Consider somebody like Alexei Stakhanov, who became a hero and a celebrity in socialist Russia for allegedly mining 227 tons of coal in a single shift, and he became a symbol of the power of socialist labour. That's a very different kind of fame from someone like, say, Henry Ford or Kim Kardashian. It's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different, both in terms of how it impacts the famous person's life and how other people around them relate to them. As far as things like institutional racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, transphobia and so on exist, that context too will affect who gets to become famous and the nature of that fame. One of the things that happens to famous people a lot is that they get recognised, so maybe that's what fame is. Maybe the more famous you are, the more likely you are to be recognised. That doesn't require anybody to really know anything true about you. It doesn't mean you have to be rich or ambitious or successful, so it means we don't have any of the problems we've talked about so far. But consider famous people like the Prophet Muhammad, or Julius Caesar, or Amelia Earhart. If they appeared on the street tomorrow, would you recognise them? I don't think I would, and yet they are very famous. There's also another problem with the recognition idea, and this is just something I've noticed in my life. Some famous people look in real life exactly how you think they do. Like Lacey Green, for instance. She looks exactly like that when you meet her. But some don't. And I don't know whether it's the way they're photographed or what, but Jedward, for instance. Last time I met them, they don't really look like that. Like, maybe it's just me, but it took me a little while to realise, oh wow, that's them. Oh, they really don't look like they do on TV. Fans of this show who meet me almost invariably say, oh wow, you're much taller than I was expecting you to be, you're much broader than I was expecting you to be, and I'm like, no. So if it's not knowledge, and it's not admiration, and it's not success or recognition or money, what the hell is fame? Well, funnily enough, I think that story about me being taller than people expect is the answer. I think that to be famous relative to some population is not for that population to have knowledge about you, but for them to have expectations about you. To be known about isn't really to be known at all, but to have people think they know you, to expect certain things about you and your behaviour to be true. The more famous you are, the more those expectations pile up, and the smaller the ground on which you can stand before you are defying those expectations. Again, that's partly due to the context of modern capitalism, under which people are expected to specialise in one or two related things. Like if you're a famous actor, you might also do a bit of writing and a bit of directing as well. Rarely nowadays do you see a true polymath, an expert in very many fields. Somebody like Henri Poincaré, who was a mathematician, a physicist, an engineer, an astronomer, and a philosopher. To be famous in the modern age is to face a much more limited set of expectations. Like imagine if you found out that Judi Dench does rocket calculations for NASA, or Serena Williams is actually Banksy, or Rowan Atkinson has a master's in electrical engineering. I mean, in theory, there's nothing that should surprise you about that. They're all possible, but it's just not what you expect. It's not what you think you know about them. Incidentally, that last one, that's true. And of course, being famous might also involve being expected to do things like go to certain events, meet people, smile, sign autographs, appear on certain shows, sign certain contracts, make certain people money, and so on. Hannah Witten wrote a very cool blog a while ago about her experience at Summer in the City, the big YouTube convention last year, which she says is the first time she ever really felt famous. And in it she describes being very busy. In other words, being expected to do all sorts of things. So I think fame is an odd beast. Not knowledge or admiration or money or success, but expectation. That's a theory that's flexible enough to get around all the problems we've raised and incorporate all the variation we discussed. I started this channel so anybody in the world could get free education, and patreon.com/philosophytube is where the fans of the show help make that vision a reality. If you've got a couple of spare bucks you could chuck my way every month, I could really use the help. And don't forget to subscribe.